he kind of criticized me for being too safe. And I was like, well, this is how I play. And if you don't like it, then fine, walk away. Like, you don't have to play with me if you're not okay with how I play, then forget it.
Welcome to Normalizing Non-Monogamy, the podcast where we interview incredible people from across the entire spectrum of non-monogamy to hear their fascinating stories. We always strive to bring guests on the show who have a healthy and positive approach to non-monogamy.
However, everyone approaches this a little different, and at its core, our show is about hearing and learning from the different experiences and approaches people have. With that in mind, it's important to remember that the views and opinions expressed by our guests do not necessarily reflect those of our own.
It's also important to remember that we aren't doctors or therapists and that we produce this show for entertainment purposes only. Please consult a medical professional for anything regarding your health that you might learn about on this show.
One final thing that we need to let you know about is that this podcast will hopefully include some explicit language. So, if that kind of thing offends you, we suggest you just keep listening until it no longer does. However, if you're under the age of 18, you should probably stop listening or gather up your parents and listen as a family. Enjoy!
Welcome to episode 56. Whoa.
10 more until another palindrome.
No. Okay, let's skip over that. Let's keep going.
Moving right along.
We're Finn and Emma, and today we have an interview with the one and only Dylan and Tonia. I wanted to say Dylan the Thomas, but
Dylan the Thomas is his Twitter name.
I know.
It's Dylan and Tonia.
I know.
So,
From Life on the
Swingset. We're not going to ramble much here. We just want to say it's an awesome interview. Give it a listen. Obviously, you're here. And we're going to be at Atlanta Poly Weekend.
June 7th through 9th, 2019.
In Atlanta, USA.
Yeah,
Georgia.
Come see us. Check out the conference.
And real quick, 2 things that we want to tell you about. One is #open. Check out their interview from episode 53.
Yes, 53.
If you don't want to go all the way back and listen to it, basically, it's a dating app that is going to just destroy Tinder because it's full of open-minded, sex-positive people, creating a safer environment for meeting other open-minded, sex-positive people.
Yes.
We will be on there, and we hope to see you there.
Yeah, and like we've said before, they are just getting started, so they're trying to grow as much as they can. Please go make a profile. Check it out. See if you like it. It's a great resource, and they're doing really good work.
And real quick, just to clarify, we are not being paid to say this.
No.
But you know who gets paid if you do sign up? Planned Parenthood. They get $1 for every person that signs up.
Yep.
So if that's not incentive, I don't know what is.
No, go do it.
All right, let's go.
And then listen to the episode.
And then let's go talk to Dylan and Tonia, not Dylan and the Thomas.
Nope, Dylan and Tonia.
All right, we'll see everybody in 1 hour. All right. Well, then should we just do it?
Yeah.
By the way, you're our second Life on the Swingset interview this week. We talked with Ginger last night.
Yeah.
And so that really just leaves Cooper. And I guess we're calling him out right now.
Yeah.
But
that assumes you really want him, but I understand. We have different tastes. So.
Well, thank you both, Dylan and Tonia, for taking the time out of your winter solstice to sit down with us and have a little chat over some tea and hot cocoa.
Yeah, shortest day of the year for you and longest for us. Because we're in the southern hemisphere.
Yeah.
No, thanks for being willing to poke us and ask us questions and listen. So yeah.
And anytime. That's what we get not paid to do. So.
But the moral of our show.
So yeah. Well, I guess for anybody who's not familiar with Life on the Swingset and who either of you are, do you mind sharing maybe a little bit of background on the two of you, where you come from, what you're into roughly,
relationship style, I guess,
and then we'll pry into the details as we go.
Yeah, well, maybe 10 or 11 years ago now, we started looking into non-monogamy because I had this critical problem of looking and lusting after other women and putting myself in positions where if I wasn't as well behaved as I was, things would happen that would not go well for our relationship. And after a particularly intense one of those things happened with a school teacher, Tonia and I got together. Well, I got together with Tonia and said, listen, I have a thing I want to talk to you about because this keeps happening to me and has happened to me a lot. And the bottom line is I don't want to lose you, and I don't know what this means. So let's talk about it. And so we talked about why my mind and why my heart and why my dick wandered or wanted to wander. And because nothing had happened and because we talked to each other about it and because I was very clear that I wanted to make sure that she knew that this was just a discussion with her and nothing else, but I wanted very much to stay with her, that we were kind of able to talk things through. And surprisingly enough to me, when I actually said maybe we should do something about this, she seemed to jump on it faster than I ever would have. So,
and so you'd crept up to the line, but never crossed it. It was just something that was very omnipresent.
Yeah, I wish I could say it was because, I mean, as much as I said I was well behaved, I can't say that I was terribly well behaved. You know, just because I didn't end up having my hand up someone's shirt or my dick inside somebody doesn't mean I was entirely well behaved. I was more out of control emotionally and physically and barely keeping it under control mentally. And it was something I was very familiar with, but had been struggling with for a long time. So I was as much reaching out for help at the time as I was reaching out for something to do with those feelings. And it just turned out that Tonia was willing to listen and stick with me through a lot of that until we figured out, hey, we actually want to do something about it as opposed to this being a problem with me. So.
Yeah. And how long had you two been together before that?
We've been together for 19 years.
So yeah, at that point we had been together for about 8 or 9 years, and we had a child together already. So.
Yeah, and so Tonia, when he came to you with this, I mean, we got a little bit of insight into how you took it, but what was going through your mind at that point? I know it was a while ago, but
a lot of it for me was like I had only been with Dylan, and I had always had the curiosity of like what it'd be like being with someone else and having sex with someone else. And so it was kind of like an easy route to say, okay, yes, I think I can do this.
And so you went right to the personal potential benefits rather than focusing on him wanting to get what he wants.
Yeah, I mean, I figured it would probably be easy for him to, you know, he had already kind of been interested in it for a while, and so like I figured it was easy for him, but as someone who's kind of introverted, I figured it might be a little bit harder for me. So yeah, I mean, we both agreed it was something that we could both do. And for me, it was also just getting those nerves of the initial going at it, you know, doing it for the first time. And once I did it with the first time with someone who I felt really comfortable with, I felt comfortable doing it and said, okay, yes, I can definitely do this for good.
Right.
Yeah.
And what did it look like in those early stages? What was the
approach?
Yeah, what was the approach? What did it look like?
Well, we got kind of lucky in the beginning because we ended up being discovered by a couple that we'd already known, and that was Cooper and his wife at the time. And so they had been trying it out for, you know, maybe 9 months before us and gave us a little bit of a leg up. Instead of, even though as much exploring on the internet as I personally did in figuring out what was going on, is this called swinging, whatever we want to do, like, because we didn't know what we wanted to do, having another couple there that were guiding us to what their solution was. And they were interested in helping us figure out whether that was a good solution for us helped a lot. If we didn't have a first couple, I'm not sure where exactly we would have landed first, or if we would have ended up being as successful as we ended up being. So the first time was literally just being in the same room with Cooper and his wife, and knowing that we were all people that could potentially sleep with each other, and getting comfortable with that idea. And they were both very sweet about it and patient about it and answered a lot of questions. And probably dealt with a lot of awkward flirting for me because I'd been so out of practice with good flirting for a long time. But out of all of that, we did end up having a lot of good coupling experiences, full swap experiences with them. And they introduced us to a whole cohort of friends that they had, and we had a lot of good experiences with them. And then after, the first few months, we kind of figured out what our, maybe not cadence was, but what our preferences were. Because, everybody was great no matter what, but we were just excited to be part of the team at that point. So we probably, I don't want to speak for you. I probably slept with a bunch of people, or at least got a little intimate with a bunch of people that I wasn't otherwise interested in, but because they were new and they were interested and willing, I was like, yes, give me all of this. This is all great. And I was very bright-eyed and bushy-tailed.
I think the first month or two we had sex, I can't even count between just the two of us and with other people. It was every day for 2 months straight, because I think we were all like, "Ooh, this is shiny. Mm-hmm. We got to do it all."
Leading up to that, had the sex life between the two of you, had it been on a downtrend, or was it always pretty good and this just built on that?
I have an opinion, but I want to hear yours first, because I'm actually curious. I don't know if we're squared up on this. So,
I will admit that I didn't have much of a sex drive, and I think that being non-monogamous has definitely helped that in lots of different ways. Yeah, are you feeling the same way?
Yeah, I feel like, the sex that we did have was pretty good, but it didn't happen as often, and I do have a higher sex drive in general than Tonia does, so not being intimate a lot, or not being intimate very much, hit me in an area which also left me a little more vulnerable to being interested in other people, even when I didn't know what to do about that. So the fact that we both ramped up to 500%, it was a buffet, and I had a lot to consume.
Yeah.
So
you probably a few weeks into that were like, what the hell just happened to my life?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, and so I'm curious now, the imbalance in the libidos, did that ever pose an issue in the lifestyle on the swinging side of things, being that you weren't completely aligned in terms of meeting with other couples, or were you both at that point, did it bring you up to level?
I don't think it ever brought us up to the same level. What we ended up finding is that I'm a lot faster to hop in bed with somebody, and I'm a lot more likely to be in bed longer with somebody, just because of our preferences. And we didn't figure that quite out right away. So I think Tonia had a lot of good humor about the fact that my foot was firmly on the accelerator all the way to the floor, and I think I got lucky a few times that we'd meet couples that saw that we were a little imbalanced and kind of slowed the whole thing down, so that I didn't end up putting pressure on Tonia to get with somebody else, or putting pressure on somebody else to kind of complete the foursome. I had a good respect for the fact that it was hard enough to get two people together that were in sync. To get four people together in sync was another magnitude of difficulty. So as much as I wanted to put the foot to the accelerator, and whenever there was somebody or somebody's there that were ready to put the foot to the accelerator, I definitely did. But I don't think that the imbalance presented in bad ways with us. It was just something we had to figure out. But again, if you disagree with me, that's totally cool. I want to.
No, I agree with that. I can generally ramp up to that level. It just sometimes takes a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we can all relate to that.
Yeah, definitely. I wanted to ask you, Tony, have you noticed that the swinging and non-monogamy has improved your confidence? Or I guess for both of you, has it improved confidence, and I guess you're just feeling more sexual?
Definitely. As someone who's very introverted, it definitely helps me break out of my shell sexually and just personally. especially when I feel comfortable or really know someone very well. Like it's not a problem. Going to like a swing clubs, I still sometimes have a hard time like gaining that confidence back up with a bunch of people I don't know. So I'm more of the, house party where I know everybody, just a more comfortable atmosphere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can relate to that.
Yeah. Both being introverts, I think that's something that we know the feeling.
Yeah.
And it sounds like the imbalance in libido wasn't really an issue. It sounds like approaching Tonia at the beginning about getting into this wasn't an issue. Have you come across anything that presented an issue for either of you, or that you didn't think was going to be an issue and then it snuck up on you?
Yeah, and I'll just say real quick before answering that, all of the difficulty approaching Tonia was in my own head and preloaded. So like I had done a lot of that and I feared the worst, and I just got very, very lucky that again, Tonia was willing to kind of stick with me and listen through all that.
Well, and real quick before we cruise on past that, for anybody who's listening that's maybe trying to come up with the words to approach their partner, what were some of the things that you did to try and create a sort of an insurance policy around, I can bring this up to her and not let it destroy us?
We know we're asking to reach back into like 10 years ago, but
I know that I let her know that I was struggling with something and I wanted to talk to her about it, but I was really afraid to talk to her about it because it's a thing that's really hard for couples to talk about because it involves, feelings about other people. But I made it really clear early on that I wasn't going to do anything with those feelings and that I didn't want anything to change necessarily with our relationship, and that I loved her and that I was there for her and that I wasn't going anywhere. And that made it sound really, really epically bad, right? Like you build something up and you qualify things a lot. You make something look like it's going to be a seismic event. But I think that I just got lucky between being vulnerable and asking for help and also saying that I wasn't going to be doing anything while we were talking, that maybe it hit a good combination that made you trust me enough to kind of stick with the conversation.
Yeah, we definitely had discussed different options or ideas before we had met our first couple who, were swingers. None of them ever made sense, so we were just like, yeah, whatever, we'll put that in the closet, leave that for another, day to talk about.
We thought about getting a couples massage at a skeezy spa-looking place. And, yeah.
Or the threesome with, like, some random person we didn't want to be friends with anymore.
Oh,
that was
yeah.
another one.
I forgot about that. Yeah, that could have been really bad.
None of them ever made any sense, so I was like, no, not a good idea.
But you got to run through those ideas, right, just to brainstorm. It doesn't hurt.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, and so the other part of that question was... Struggles, yeah. So where did the struggles come in, if any?
Communication about when we were actually going to get down with somebody was a big problem early on, because Tonia would disappear and I wouldn't know where she was. And I kept saying to myself, it's fine if she's with somebody else. It's fine if she's with somebody else. But it hit me in a bad spot not knowing if she was with somebody else. And so I'd find myself going into these loops of, don't go look for her. She'll be fine. You're just going to get mad if you see her with somebody else. And it wasn't necessarily because I wanted Tonia to ask me or anything like that. I just kind of wanted to know so I wouldn't worry about it. And so a few times early on, that was a bit of a problem. And it's really funny. I don't think I had a problem early on letting her know that I was about to get down with somebody, if we weren't doing couples stuff, of course. But that actually has been a little bit of a problem lately. We've squared up on that to make it very clear that unless we are in different states, we should just drop each other a note to let each other know that we're going to get down if it's going to happen in this house. Because walking in on that is really uncomfortable. and that just recently happened. So it's kind of funny to see it come full circle the other way, where that used to be her problem and now it's my problem, and we're still working on it, 10 years later. So
yeah, I mean, it's all about learning from your mistakes. And early on, I made a lot of weird mistakes of like he was talking about the me disappearing, but it wouldn't be at like a swinger event or anything. It would be at like a regular party that I'd go off with someone, and then everyone would be looking for me, and it wasn't just him looking for me, it was people wanting to say goodbye to me, and then making it uncomfortable with him figuring out, oh, she's probably with someone else, so I'm not sure where she is. So then we came up with the understanding and rule, I would say it was a rule at first, of like checking in with each other, that everything was okay, but just to check in with each other. Hey, I'm going to go do something with so-and-so, just letting you know. That way we always kind of knew where we were.
Yeah, so it was never when Dylan said, oh, I didn't want to go looking because I didn't want to get mad, it was never a jealousy thing. It was like you and 17 of your other friends were literally on a scavenger hunt for your wife.
Yeah, pretty much so.
Well, that's fair. Has jealousy ever come up since I brought it up conveniently for myself?
Proud of yourself there.
So I know that I've definitely felt jealous before, especially when we'd be at events where Tonia would be much more desired than I would, or at least I felt that way. And it still creeps up every so often, but it doesn't really come out of... The jealousy didn't necessarily come out of the fact that she was having a good time and I wasn't, or that she was more desirable than I wasn't. It was just... I'm not even sure I can assign it to anything in particular. It's more like I felt left out, and I needed to figure out how not to feel left out. And the more I focused on feeling left out, I felt left out. And it doesn't happen very often, but it does happen. And I think it's a kind of jealousy when that happens. So, I wasn't jealous that you were, getting an orgasm or getting played with or getting all the attention. It was just, well, what do I do now? Do I play a support role? Do I grab a cheese dish and start feeding people that are in the orgy that you're in the middle of? Or do I continue to... I don't know. And I found good solutions for that.
And I think that was before we figured out the whole voyeurism as participation type deal too. Early on, we didn't know it was okay to just sit down and watch and enjoy what was going on and the atmosphere that was around us. So I think that might have been a little part of the whole jealousy when one of us was sort of left out.
Yeah. Learning to be cool was really important for me. So
I was curious, have you, each of you, have you had some aha moments over the last 10, 11 years in doing this, that something just clicked for you and you're like, that's the thing that was the missing piece?
It was understanding that the quietly confident is my style. And in order to be quietly confident, I had to learn to be cool with whatever was going on, and to kind of not go into an event or even into an encounter with people where I was expecting to get it on, or that if I didn't get it on, something had been a failure. So setting my own expectations and learning to be cool with whatever happened meant that I was happy to be wherever I was enjoying myself more, and that ended up presenting as kind of a cool confidence that has resulted in me having a lot more fun with people, because a lot of people are attracted to that. Some people are attracted to being the life of the party, or to people that are the life of the party. Some people are attracted to a lot of other different things, but the kind of people that I'm generally attracted to seem to generally be attracted to people that have quiet confidence. Mm-hmm. And it's worked out really nicely, because there are not many times that I end up going into a space and I don't have a good time. And it's because most of the time I end up playing with somebody, even if it doesn't happen right away. But even if I don't, I'm just enjoying what's going on, and it's all good. And that leaves a good impression for people in the future if we all end up being in the same room in the future.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think part of that too is just being okay. Like you said, if something happens, awesome. If not, that's awesome too. I still get to go home with my wife at the end of the night, and we're still in a loving, committed relationship, and that your night's not going to be a failure if you don't get to hook up with somebody else.
I do admit, saying to myself at the end of the night, I get to hit that was very effective. So,
yeah, we've always made it a point to, like, after a night out of coming home and being with each other, reconnecting with each other. And that's...
No matter how late it is.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, even I'm like going to wake up next morning to have that, like, reconnection. We've done that too. It's important.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, any thoughts on the revelation from your side, Tonia, or do you want to move on to a better, less deep question? I'm throwing the hard balls out there.
Big aha moment was discovering that I was bisexual.
That's a good one.
I always thought women were pretty unattractive, but growing up, I was kind of sheltered from, gays and lesbians and trans people, so I didn't really know what to do with any of that. And being able to kind of test that out and see if I really enjoyed that. And I remember my first experience being really, really awesome, and realizing that, I am really attracted to women. And so it's kind of nice to be able to explore that and have a lot more variety in people.
Yeah, something that you didn't even know was there, right?
Yeah. I mean, I discovered that in my, late 20s? Yeah. So for me, it was really late. And so, it was a cool thing to discover.
Yeah. I wanted to ask, it sounds like your journey has been, like 8 or 10 years. Have you mostly stuck to, like, the swinging, like, house party style, or has it evolved at all?
Oh, it's definitely evolved into, we started off with the whole swinging thing, and then probably I'm going to say, like, 5 years later, started dipping our toes more into the poly aspect of non-monogamy.
Mm-hmm.
So I have been more prolific at dating other people than Tonia has, but I found that we just had I definitely dated more people than Tonia did and has so far. It just kind of came more naturally to me that I had more people in my life. Like, I have the additional emotional space to support multiple people, multiple partners, multiple loves in my life. But it's nice that we both have respect for each other's speeds in the dating world. And it's nice that we both have respect for each other's speeds in just, lots of casual fun. Because our casual fun, I like going to clubs. We haven't been to a club in a bit, and I'd like to try and do that. And actually, we're going to a really, really big hotel takeover called Naughty and Nolan. Sorry, we're going to that too. We're going to Naughty and Nolan's too, but we're heading up to Valentine's in Niagara in about a month and a half, which is a huge hotel takeover. And that hasn't been our speed in a while, but I'm looking really forward to getting into it because I still have that speed in me. And we've been doing the house party route quite a bit, both hosting and going to other people's parties. The reason we've stuck with the house party scene for so long is because of the freedom that it affords. Like, we end up going there. We don't end up coupling up a lot, but we can still kind of watch each other play across the room, give each other a nod and a wink, and then continue, being inside of somebody or having somebody inside of us. And it's really cool to, like, be comfortable, go into an environment that we're comfortable with because it's small enough that we know where both of, where we are, and confident enough in each other that we can play in ways that we're both comfortable with and with as many people as we're comfortable with, and then come out of that going like, so, hey, what did you do at the party? I don't know. What did you do at that party? And we kind of square up at the end of the party. And a space that's bigger than a house, it's a little harder to do that I mean, we do, but there's a little less comfort involved. And so we have to spend a little more time getting comfortable with people as opposed to automatically going in and being comfortable with the environment. So we still go to clubs, and we obviously go to larger swinger events, but I think our preferred speed is still going to a house party where we know at least a couple people that are hosting, or hosting our own, because we know how to throw a good bacchanalia.
I wanted to also ask, so like you transitioned, right, from more swingers to dating other people. Did you encounter, I guess, how did that conversation go? Did you just kind of naturally evolve into that space, or did you have a lot more conversations around how that might change your relationship?
So I admit, I'm actually going to ask you to fill me in a little bit, Tonia, because I remember what I felt and that I wanted to try and give it a try. And then I remember going to Burning Man and unlocking some stuff, right?
Oh yeah.
And so
went to the camp.
Right, we went to the camp. So I stayed at a polyamorous camp in Burning Man and had a wonderful time. I had a bit of a playa wife for a few days, which is a thing that happens out there whether you're non-monogamous or not. But I don't remember the conversation surrounding that stuff when I got home, so I'm going to hope you can fill me in there.
I'm not even sure we really had a conversation.
Nope.
I think it just kind of like took its course down that path. Like, I think you go into Burning Man, and I think like I'll share B Cats being the poly one on the podcast. I think really kind of opened our eyes into a different type of non-monogamy, and one that could easily be comfortable going down that path.
I think we're both blaming Shirabi Cats for attempting to dip our toes into polyamorousness. So, yeah.
So maybe you just sounds like it was pretty natural then.
Yeah, I think it was pretty clear early on that we were both kind of wired for it. We could have easily ended up hitting a roadblock with one of us being interested in it and one of us not, and so this whole trying out non-monogamy thing, I think we both got incredibly lucky because we both happen to be wired for it, in different quantities and in different ways, but we're still ready for it. So
we also kind of found it for a while. We found that like there were a lot of poly people that just really like to have sex, so it kind of had that like swinger feel for a while, and I think that just made that easier to go down that path. It was like we'd go on a date with someone, get to know someone, and then they would want to have sex, and it was like, oh, okay, like this is easy.
Yeah, I forgot. We had a bunch of gateway poly people that got us into poly, and then as a result of that, we ended up being the gateway swingers for a bunch of poly people.
So it sounds like the two worlds aren't so far apart at the end of the day.
I really don't think so. I think a lot of the difference between poly and swinger folk is that poly folk like to think they're different and swinger folk like to think they're different. But at the end of the day, there are a lot of common components. I mean, there are definitely different focuses, right? Like swingers are used to evaluating somebody's interest in getting down quickly and evaluating their own attraction to somebody very quickly, whereas poly people in general are more focused on whether, again, gross generalizations here, but a lot more focus goes on, is this person going to be compatible with the network of partners that I have? Is this person going to respect the other partners in my life? Are they going to fit with the arrangements that I have with work and family? Things like that. And yes, the sex is there for both of them. The managing multiple relationships is still there for both of them. Lots of common threads, just the focus is somewhere else. And so I compare being a swinger and getting all that evaluation done quickly as like a speed dating thing. Whereas with polyfolk, you have, a good 30 minutes to get all of those things out. And the sexiness kind of comes later. So I think it's all mixed in there. It's just in different focuses and, comes in at different times.
For me also, I think it comes from like, I like to get to know people before having sex. Mm-hmm. And so I think that forcing myself to get to know people in the swinger culture and then kind of translating that to poly has made that easier. Because I I have to have that like connection. It doesn't need to be that poly connection, but I have to have some kind of connection to someone before I decide that I want to, go and have fun with someone.
Right. Yeah, so you may not have to be in love with them, but you at least need to have a little more of a rapport than just, hey, nice to meet you.
Which I think is pretty common.
Yeah.
We didn't think it was that common at all. We thought that we were going to be super different because of some of the early people that we met at clubs, but it turns out, most of the people we met actually were okay with talking while and feeling each other out for a while, maybe even going on more than one date before we fuck. Oh my God. And I know there are settings at a lot of dating sites for like, do you fuck on the first date? But the default is almost always yes.
Right. Yeah.
Well, just getting to know people and being able to hang out with people outside of swinging and poly and all sorts of different types of non-monogamy is also a really good feeling too, where, we can have a normal party and still hang out and it'd be normal, or, play dates with kids, or,
those friendships, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was curious, has most of your friend group transitioned to a lifestyle core, or do you still have some of those vanilla friends who aren't in the know and you're still kind of keeping it a secret?
We have several different groups of people in various like other activities other than non-monogamy of people we're friends with.
You can say roller derby, it's okay.
Well, there's roller derby and there's board gaming and some of that kind of intermingles with each other.
Yeah.
As we've kind of recently discovered.
I'll offer my experience, but like, you feel free to interrupt me at any time if you remember what you're thinking of. Early on, I had a pretty core group of male friends that I used to hang out with a lot. And when I found the lifestyle, I started talking to them about it, they found it so foreign to them that it was affecting our ability to be around each other and be comfortable. Also because I think maybe I was threatening because I could potentially sleep with their wives and they were afraid of that. Mm-hmm. And even though I had zero designs on their wives, I think just knowing that there was somebody in the room that could do that, or that was free to do that, introduced, an unsafe person or a danger. And so I felt a lot of distance that felt very physical between them. And I ended up kind of letting them go at some point because we grew apart. Like, we never quite healed that rift, but it wasn't that I did anything to them. It's just I'd made a personal choice, and they weren't willing to kind of follow me along in that. I wasn't asking for anything additional of them, and I was like, you know what? Those are not the kind of friends I need. I would like to have friends that are willing to kind of, I'm not even asking for any support, just be friends. Let's spend fun time together doing whatever we decide to do. And if we have vastly different personal lives, that's cool. I'd love to hear about it, and I'd love to talk about it. And so a lot of friends that I found through swinging and then through polyamory ended up being my friends in other areas of my life because they were willing to follow me along in whatever I ended up doing. So in, my 8 years of roller derby, in all the board gaming and computer gaming and other stuff that we do, like, they're friends, and some of them do that with us because they're interested in that too. And so I do have a lot of friends that aren't non-monogamous, but the core group of friends right now are all non-monogamous in some way or another because they've been willing to be part of my life and let me into their lives, even if it doesn't necessarily mean we're boning.
And the ones that, aren't in the lifestyle, aren't non-monogamous, at least have a understanding that they're okay with it, that they know that we have a healthy relationship. I don't ever have to talk about it with them, but if they want to ask questions, they can ask questions, and I'd be happy to answer. Some people want to hear about it, some people don't.
Yeah.
And that's cool with me.
Right, but you feel like you have that support, which is I think the important part, right?
Yes. Yeah, the support is nice, and knowing that they're not, like, being judgmental. Like,
right.
I've had a little bit of that, you know.
Yeah.
For sure.
I know that, changing topics a little bit, unless you have something on that same topic.
No, not really. I got a good question, but I'll wait till later.
Okay. I know on the podcast, all of you stress safer sex very heavily. And I wanted to just touch on it on this podcast, on how you two handle that in non-monogamy.
And how has it evolved over
Right.
time, if at all?
We've definitely gone through some pretty significant evolutions, but I'll tell you where we are right now. Knowing our status is really important, and knowing the status of the people we're going to be with is pretty important. So for our part, we both get tested every 6 months on a staggered basis. So for me, it's every 6 months, but every 3 months after I get tested, she gets tested. And if there's any reason to get tested in the middle, we do, and it's no big deal. And we kind of check in with people that we're with to make sure they're getting tested regularly too, and that we know their statuses before we enjoy time with them, and that generally goes well. But in the beginning, we were definitely people that used condoms on cocks and didn't use any other protection. I would say that we didn't know there were other options out there at the time, but my primary motivator is that I love giving oral sex. And Tonia wasn't terribly motivated with that. So I had a lot of oral sex without barriers with people back then. And through some good conversations with some sex educators and a bunch of other people, we ended up pulling back from that a little bit and got to the point where we got good enough using barriers that all of our sexual contact with genitals involved barriers. And so that might be, saran wrap while giving oral. That would mean, gloves on hands if we're going to be with multiple people, and things like that. In addition to condoms on cocks and things like that. And we did that across the board. And theoretically, we might have been willing to open that up, but nobody ever came along that meant enough to us that made us comfortable to do that. Mm-hmm. And a little of that might have been out of fear, and a little of that might have just been a counter reaction to what we had done before, knowing that we had been so cavalier with having oral sex with so many people. But now that we're 10, almost 11 years into this, we've actually spent a lot of time over the last year talking about reevaluating that. And so we've come to the conclusion that if we're going to end up going to a swing event where we're going to be with a bunch of people that we don't know, yeah, we're going to use barriers for oral, not without a problem and without fail. But if we're in a house party with a bunch of people that we know that we've kind of talked to ahead of time we're comfortable with, I think oral sex without barriers is okay. And so we're evaluating it on a situational basis. We're evaluating it on a person-to-person basis. And so far, we've been comfortable exploring oral with people without barriers as long as we have that comfort level and that, common knowledge of testing status and play practices and things like that. So we may evolve again, but we've, again, kind of come a little bit around the horn on that.
Yeah, I mean, there are definitely people that we both agree upon, like, okay, that person we've been with several times, we know their status, we know they get tested regularly. There are definitely people that we've kind of, I'm going to say the two of us have vetted that we'd be okay with, like, letting our guard down a little bit.
Yeah, I think that makes sense, and it's a good approach. I agree.
Yeah, and I'm curious. I think that's one of the more stringent approaches we've heard, and I know we kind of knew that going in, that was sort of your approach. Did you ever encounter pushback from people, or did you largely use it as a sort of a learning opportunity to show and be an advocate and a promoter for ways to do it without it, killing the mood or detracting from the sexiness that was about to ensue?
Yeah, I've had pushback a little bit. we a few years ago went to a house party of people we didn't know. A really great house party that started off with like a welcoming circle and trying to like do little scenarios with different people and just testing the waters and stuff. But there were a lot of people at this party, and one of them was going through your status and telling them how you play and blah 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 blah. And I partnered up with this man, and he kind of criticized me for being too safe. And I was like, well, this is how I play, and if you don't like it, then fine, walk away. Like, you don't have to play with me if you're not okay with how I play, then forget it. Goodbye.
Yeah.
I will find someone who is okay with playing that way.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
And to be really brief, like for me, I haven't gotten a lot of hard pushback. I've gotten a lot of, in the moment somebody wants to go down on me, and I let them know, hang on a second, I actually would like to put a condom on if you're going to go down on me, and then we have a little discussion, and then sometimes it happens and sometimes it doesn't. Some people have bigger issues with having, the latex or the taste of latex in their mouths or the lube in their mouths or things like that, and then it ends up being, for some people, oral is off the table at that point. And the thing is, even though that thing may happen in a sexy situation, there are so many other things that we can do to enjoy ourselves that one little hiccup ends up getting overshadowed by the overall fun that we're having elsewhere. Yeah. So if that particular, first of all, whenever I'm going to get down with somebody like that, I let them know up front almost all the time what, my practices are. There are exceptions when, I'll get past that point or things will happen so quickly that doesn't happen. But even then, most of the people that I play with aren't the kind of people that are like, oh, well, I can't have your dick in my mouth unprotected. Well, then, I just don't want to be with you. Or, if you don't have your tongue on my clit right now, I'm just not going to be okay with this. I like to think that a lot of the pre-discussions we have kind of disqualify people like that, because there are people like that out there. But it's been a long time just because I disclose pretty quickly, but then keep things rolling in a sexy way. So,
yeah, no, I think that's awesome to hear.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
We appreciate the sharing.
But having said that, I fucking love pussy. So it is really, really nice. I'm holding Tonia's hand right now. I love that I can go down on people now.
Well, yeah, and I don't think we were conflating that you like to use protection, that you dislike pussy.
Right.
Oh, no, I know. That was, I just wanted to say it because it felt good to say, that's all.
Well, you're welcome to say it anytime. No problem.
Mm-hmm.
So I was curious, board gamers, fellow board gamers.
Yeah, good question.
Hey.
What is a board game that was not intended for sexy purposes that you have just defiled and found ways to make it adult friendly? Because we're always looking for ideas.
I think that adult code names, although I guess that can be.
Yeah, a defileable game is adult code names. It's almost harder to play with a bunch of sexy perverts because everybody knows that everything is perverted and everything can mean everything else.
Yeah.
So, it adds a lot of complexity to adult code words in a way that we didn't really expect.
And it was fun. The last time we sat down and played adult code names was with Mixed Company.
Oh yes.
And we discovered some people were also non-monogamous after that.
Yes, we did.
Good to know.
Yeah, that's a fun way to find out.
The first game, though, the prototype game that we absolutely defiled was Settlers of Catan. We don't play it anymore, but the amount of wood flinging that would go and yeah, it was just
the sheep for wood thing.
A sheep for wood.
Yeah.
Yep. It was impressive.
Yeah, I think we've all played that, and maybe you can't get him to commit to a trade, but you can throw in a little sexual enticement.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
I have gone to a naked board gaming party.
Yes.
Ooh, that sounds fun.
Yeah. And it was just, there was nothing sexy about it. No.
Oh, I doubt that.
I was going to say, it sounds pretty sexy.
There was no sexual contact going on. It was just literally getting naked and board gaming, and it was fantastic.
Yeah, that would be an amazing night.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will say if we're going to get together with a bunch of people that we're going to get down with, but we all want to have dinner first, a good way to put a little space between dinner and fucking is to play a board game.
Yeah. It's one of our favorite things. And then the problem for us, though, is we love playing board games so much that sometimes we forget that we're supposed to also have sex.
We don't forget. We struggle with the transition. I think that's
just one more game. Come on, we can do one more. It's only a 3-hour game.
We tried to have a board game sexy night, and again failed at the transition to the sexy part.
So we don't have any answers for you because we haven't figured that out yet.
Back to the drawing board.
We're trying.
And maybe it just happens to be naked board gaming. Maybe we just need to get naked at the beginning. And
yeah, I suspect that for a party with board gamers that are all planning or hoping to have sex, that we need to set a cutoff time for the board gaming. Like, okay, 30-minute timer now, 5-minute timer now. Okay, if you're still playing board games, you're doing it at your own risk. There may be fluids involved, and then go from there. So we'll try that out.
Countdown.
Yeah. We did a version of Seven Wonders. It wasn't necessarily sexual, but it was we found a way to make it a strip game.
Yeah.
Oh.
And
but that was with vanilla friends.
It was with vanilla friends, but yeah, we were able to yeah. It actually worked out really well. Yeah. So we'll have to post the rules online.
To get naked.
Yeah, I would send me a link because I would love to know. We are big fans of Seven Wonders.
Yeah, I'm intrigued by this now.
I'll have to see if I can get him to send me the list. We'll post the list. We'll find a way to post the list. For sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, well maybe that's a good transition though into swinging or poly bloopers.
Yeah,
one of our favorite segments. Not that we have segments, but if we did, this would be a segment. Do either of you have one that you're willing and able to share of something funny that you did or happened to you?
Or awkward.
Awkward. We love awkward.
I've got one. Tonia's thinking.
Okay.
So, I am a big fan of the Enjoy Pure Wand. And it does a great many things for me and the people that I end up using it on.
Uh-huh.
And there was one person that I was with that ended up playing with her. She hadn't seen the Pure Wand before. She loved G-spot stimulation. And so I put it in her and was really slow and deliberate about it. And over the course of a couple hours, just built her up to an enormous fucking release, and to the point where she was crying in a really beautiful way. Like there was no mistaking that this was a good cry. But at the end of it, I was also pretty exhausted because I'd been playing with her for a couple hours, and I was probably using the Pure Wand for almost an hour. Wow. And and the thing is, this is a thing that is curved, and if you let it go, it will flop over one way or another. And I was exhausted enough, and I was relieved enough and happy enough and all that stuff that I just kind of let it go. And of course, that curve also turned around inside of her. And so in the midst of, her being blissed out, she kind of sat up for a second and said, "Did you just let go of that thing while it was inside of me?" I'm like, "Oh God." And I righted the ship. I ended up taking it out of her at that point. And we had a good laugh cry about it.
Yeah, because that would catch you off guard all of a sudden. Went, whoop.
Yeah, well, anybody who's not familiar, that's a stainless steel. Basically, you were lifting weights for an hour.
Yeah.
Yes. Lightweights, but yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Although, now that I think about it, no, I don't want to undersell that. If you're using the Pure Wand right, you can be applying pressure by, lifting and pulling. And so, doing that repetitive motion over the course of an hour, that's a lot. So yeah, you know what? I'll own that. Thank you.
I would too. That's a lot of work.
Tonia stumped.
We'll let her off the hook because that's the type of hosts we are.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well, thank you.
Let's see. Anything else? Do we have any other questions?
I mean, we could talk all night, but I feel like, it's winter solstice.
Summer solstice for us.
Summer solstice, yeah. We should. I guess we'll give you the platform right now, the open forum to share any final thoughts that either of you have that you want to yell into the podcast universe.
Yeah,
to the
or
listeners.
plug anything too.
Well, I want to appreciate that you are offering opportunities for people to kind of tell their stories because it's super valuable, and it's something that I don't make enough time to do. So thank you for going and reaching out to people and interviewing them and putting their stories out there. I think it's great. And thanks for giving us an opportunity to do it too. And if I were to offer a shout out, it would be that I do have my own podcast. It's called Life on the Swingset. You can find it at lifeontheswingset.com. We are up to almost 350 episodes, and that is a very scary thing. So
that
we have
is
gone
very
through 9
impressive.
iterations of the podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
very
amazing.
impressive.
Yeah, for sure. And I will throw on to that you were basically the first lifestyle podcast that we ever found because you happened to launch almost exactly when we really started trying to get into it, not full time, but more in depth. So we started listening from day one, and we've been on the ship ever since.
And the podcast was very fundamental in our early discussions. We were learning right along with you. So that was amazing.
Well, good. And you know what? I hope that the learning that I'm still doing and the stuff that we're still doing is valuable to somebody out there too. So I'm glad it helped with you two, and that it's obviously you two are doing something very right. So.
Oh, thank you.
We're trying at least.
Is there anything else, or Tonia, would you like to add anything?
To piggyback on that, I've learned a lot from hearing other people's stories and or experiences, and so I appreciate you guys doing what you're doing. I think there's not enough of people sharing their experiences, and I think it's a valuable lesson to people just starting out.
Yeah, well, thank you, and thank you both for that, and anybody listening, that's a call out for you to share your damn stories because people are learning from them.
Yes, exactly.
So, well, thank you for all the kind words and stroking our egos.
Yes.
We appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
And
thank you for your time and making the effort to come on the show too. We really appreciate it.
Happy to do it.
Yeah, thank you.
And once again, thank you for coming on, and have a wonderful evening.
I hope you two do too.
We will. We
Thank
definitely
you.
will.
Good night.
We're back again. We still haven't come up with a better way to come back.
I was going to say, really creative.
Anyway, thanks to Dylan and Tonia.
And to Cooper for coming on in the future.
That's true.
Hey, Cooper. Anyway.
You're next.
That's a wrap on Dylan and Tonia. So thank you both for that. And real quick, before we let you go, we're going to Atlanta Poly Weekend. We told you before. We'll tell you again until we already go, and then we're back.
June 7th to 9th, 2019.
In the meantime, we are your one-stop shop for all your sex safety resources.
The first one, stdcheck.com. You've heard us mention it before if you listen to the podcast, but go and use the links on our website and you will get $10 off your testing panel.
That's awesome.
Yes.
On top of that,
it's a great resource.
If you want to save 10% off of all of your custom fit condoms.
Yeah, they have like 66 sizes or more, and it's called My One Condoms.
Yep, so you can go straight to their website if you want, or if you don't want to remember that, you can go to our website and go there. Either way, they don't pay us to say this, but if you use Emma as an offer code,
yeah, Emma,
you save 10% and get some sweet condoms for your wiener.
Yes. Next week we have episode 57, which will be an interview with Catherine and Ray.
Yep.
Which
I don't want to spoil it.
It's amazing.
It's a great conversation, and
so we'll see you next week.
Yes.